This one sounds like it's going to be a big barrel of laughs, huh? D&D Players of Reddit, what's your funniest adventure story, Part 1? We were fighting a friend's homebrew Pathfinder boss, and it was thrashing our party. We were all almost dead, and it was grappling me, the healer. I was playing a race that had a natural 1d4 bite attack. In desperation, as it was about to grapple me to death, its turn was right after mine, I bit it. My stats meant I was never going to out-grapple it, and I'd already tried and failed twice to break free, so I bit it. Met its AC and rolled a 4 for damage. This was just enough damage to kill it, and watching the GM's face fall when I successfully hit it, then got the 1 in 4 roll I needed to save my life, and probably everyone else's, was magical. He went from barely restrained cackling glee to just, oh. I was DMing for a group of girls from my high school. So these ladies are flying on their airship to inform the family of the previous captain that he's dead. I roll up a random encounter. 2 hippogriffs start stabbing at their balloon. 3 natural 20s later, the hippogriffs are trapped in a fishnet and all tied up. The group proceeds to spend the next 8 hours negotiating with salesmen and town leaders, trying to found a hippogriff sanctuary. They did not roll quite as well during this process, and eventually the hippogriffs were sold in exchange for a powerful magic amulet. Unfortunately, the guy they sold them to was the beastmaster that had killed the captain. He was in disguise and preparing to unleash his beasts upon them. They were very upset when their pets returned wearing demon armor and guiding the forces of Asmodeus out of the plains of hell. I ran a game where I mistakenly allowed one of my players to play a changeling. He rolled high charisma. He intimidated the villainous lord of the first major city. The party then successfully bluffed the guard and had the real lord imprisoned as an imposter. They took over the city, and my rescue mission campaign became a city management and politics sim. A group of friends found a DM on a bulletin board and decided to give his campaign a shot. This DM also decided to play a hero character that was apparently a super badass. It became very apparent that we were all there just to support his power character fantasy. Oh, did you say funny? I thought you meant horribly sad. Our DM punished us with monstrous cleaning constructs for breaking into the service corridors of an abandoned, possibly cursed, building. My monk gained a warhammer made of basically an enchanted industrial vacuum cleaner wedged on the end of his quarterstaff. Being a complete D&D nab at the time, I kept referring to myself as the steampunk monk. Oh, I love that. Much to the annoyance of our DM and pleasure of the narrator reading this story. When she pointed out in this particular game none of the NPCs knew what steampunk was, I went back to my character's old name, comma, wielder of the Attackium. Oh, that's pretty good too. I had to roll 1d10 every attack, and if I got a critical fail, the arcane construct came loose and would be treated as a one-off projectile attack. The tieflings were trying to catch the little arcane construct they saw earlier and were calling it Roomba-san. Oh, I love it. We don't know what the rogue planned to do with the Roomba bear trap combo, but he was enjoying himself immensely. Ganbate Roomba-san was a staple of every subsequent session, as was how much Anakin Skywalker hates sand. We were escorting a merchant caravan across the desert. Eventually, I quit D&D because I felt embarrassed when my friends were making, albeit non-malicious, jokes at my expense. So, I had a brief chat with our DM about killing me off. This resulted in our new Sawbones cleric firing me out of a trebuchet onto the back of a mid-flight dragon and using fangs of the fire snake until so much damage was caused the dragon was forced to land. I was then promptly eaten. To this day, Sawbones still carries my skull around and talks to me like I'm still there, trying to invoke my ghost into taking part in his chaotic shenanigans. Might see if my old DM lets me take part in a session and play as my ghost. I've still got an audio recording of character's death somewhere, which I listened to for shits and giggles. My first time playing D&D, I got nearly the entire party killed in the first 5 minutes. We started off in a generic tavern as a bunch of young adventurers ready to make their way in the world. Mine was a dumb-as-dirt half-orc barbarian by the name of Haka. We decided to head out and look for work. Before we head out, however, the chaotic druid, all too eager to try his hand at combat, suggests starting a bar fight first. Upon hearing the word fight, Haka, in his thirst for blood, rages, draws his blade, and buries it in the gut of the bartender. The rogue, in an attempt to stop things before they get out of hand, grabs a chair and attempts to knock out the raging barbarian. At this point, things are going downhill fast. The rogue's attempt results in a critical failure, which ends up with him knocking himself out with the chair. At this point, the guards burst in, alerted by the screaming patrons fleeing the tavern. Haka, seeing the guards with their swords drawn, immediately assumes they are a threat. He charges and is impaled on a number of pikes. The fighter and druid decide to avenge their fallen comrade, decide to attack the guards while the wizard, too smart for that, runs upstairs and attempts to jump out a bedroom window. The druid and fighter are dispatched easily. The wizard encounters a city sorcerer waiting for him outside the tavern. The sorcerer, having not fully read the rules of Magic Missile, casts the spell and misses. The party wizard does the same. The sorcerer makes another attempt at Magic Missile and fails. Our wizard attempts to make a plunging attack with his spear and misses. At this point, the sorcerer is fed up with the whole thing and casts Fireball. The resultant AoE damage evaporates the wizard easily. Total casualties for the fight were all 5 party members and 0 guards, and 1 unlucky bartender. That wasn't nearly getting the party killed, that was flawlessly getting the party killed, my dude or dudette. Our goal, which was never achieved, was to find the Pink Fountain of Floyd. Our bard sang this song a lot. Reach out your hand if your cup be empty, if your cup is full. May it be again, let it be known there's a fountain that was not made by the hands of men. I was trying to make it more bard-like, but I tried. Group was fighting 3 earth elementals and were promptly getting thrashed because we split the party. Don't split the party! And the other half was rushing over. It became pretty clear that at the rate we were going, we were gonna get wiped. It was at this moment that our only wizard decided to grapple an earth elemental. He rolled a nat 20 to succeed and was successful in keeping the elemental in his grasp. He proceeded to drag the elemental to the edge of a platform that bordered a lava river, all the while the elemental was failing to free itself. Our rogue/ranger decided to kick them both in rather than chance the elemental freeing themselves. The wizard then was able to jump off the elemental and back onto the platform. The rock elemental died, and as he sank into the lava, it just gave us a thumbs up. Legit, the only reason why we survived that encounter. We were exploring a dungeon and my less than good swashbuckler had taken a prisoner to help guide us through the dungeon. Seeing a rune over a doorway, our wizard warned us that passing under it could be dangerous. So, we decided to use our prisoner to test for traps by tossing him through the door. Naturally, that triggered the symbol of death. Our prisoner, as a minion of the big bad evil guy, was attuned to it. Alas, I was not. The image of throwing someone through this door, just to fall dead myself as our prisoner slowly stood up, and our wizard looked on going, "Oh, forgot to tell you that it has an area of effect. My bad." My players can be a little distractible. So, oftentimes we will have little mini adventures separate from the main ones sprinkled throughout. These will be run in a separate universe with separate characters from the main game. This gives the players a chance to let loose and do things which they wouldn't want to do with a main character they have invested real time in. Normally, these adventures will be resolved in a single sitting, either because the characters die or because they get to a point where it's boring, so we don't want to revisit it. We often do this when we are missing a player as well. That way we can have fun while not progressing the main game without them. Anyway, the players had just created their characters and I had introduced them to a town. The party was supposed to be neutral good, but the nature of these games means that matters less than you would think. So they are in the town and they head to the stables to rent a horse. Fairly standard stuff. They are talking to the owner of the stables and he says something that apparently offends the barbarian of the group, who promptly attacks him. The proprietor, being a commoner, is promptly knocked unconscious. The barbarian declares his intentions to finish killing the man, and the other players agree. He hits the man on the head, and he dies. I feel he should be punished for doing something so against his alignment, so I send the guards to the stables. The party proceeds to fight the city guards, but more keep coming. They are still relatively low level, so the guards eventually manage to knock one player unconscious and critically wound the barbarian. The third party member is still fighting, but is quickly losing ground. The barbarian begins to crawl over to the downed party member, then attempts to cannibalize him in an attempt to regain hit points. This is a clusterfuck. The player of the downed character objects to this, and the players argue amongst themselves for a bit. I warn the barbarian that there is a chance he will catch a disease if he does, but he is adamant in his decision. I whip up a quick table to determine if he catches a disease or not. He rolls, and it turns out he got AIDS. Oh god, from drinking the corpse blood. This is despite the character he is eating not having AIDS previously. This, of course, does not restore any of his HP. He decides that this means he has not gotten enough yet, so he attempts to eat him again. This sparks another argument, as it would push the character's hit points into instability. Yet again, he is adamant. He rolls the dice and gets AIDS again. I declare that this means he has double AIDS. Oh, this is ridiculous. Around this point, the third party member is finally taken out by the guards, and the entire party is killed, all in a pretty pointless session. However, since that day, getting double AIDS has been both an in-joke within the group and something they hold above the barbarian's head as well as mine if they think I'm being ridiculous, and our term for rocks fall, everyone dies style situations. We were heading into an epic battle with the most powerful and terrifying villain in the game world. He was immortal and had been referenced in several campaigns, but this time, he was the main baddie. Dude's a bard and has a drum, playing a tune that has raised a massive army of the undead. We have our own smaller army, and looked like we were fucked. Alchemist throws alchemist fire, not at the villain, but at his drum. Entire undead army collapses. Villain looks right at him and says, "You are a terrible person." I wanted to introduce my friends who were new to D&D to unconventional RPG stuff, like running instead of staying until you die, or sneaking. We play goofy and have fun, so not super serious. Anyway, I put a dragon in a room they had to pass through so they could sneak or just run. It was a wizard's pet, so they should have been fine. One guy was like, "I'm gonna try and talk to it." And I was like, okay, not what I expected, but he wasn't trying to kill it at least. So he strikes up a conversation with this dragon, and everyone else is sneaking by. I should mention he's a Dragonborn fighter, a couple of back-to-back critical skill checks, and he's smoking a cigarette after a romantic encounter with a dragon. There once was a gnome bard that loved the ladies a bit too much. She convinced a dwarven princess that they were destined to be together, so they could sleep together before heading out of town. The dwarven princess sent letters, but the bard never responded, and eventually the dwarf became obsessed. She summoned the god Eros to terrorize a town and took a potion of gigantism when the bard said it was over, and the party had to fight a 2-story tall, emotionally unstable dwarf. I'm gonna warn you ahead of time, I'm gonna butcher these, so please don't kill me. I had an Ithorian noble that started a cult based on being more like an Ithorian and less like a Gamorrean. It was successful. Many self-help books were sold. I started my own Sea Org with a giant capital ship I bought from the proceeds, and a little help from my mother, and also ended up running a smuggling outfit nestled inside an asteroid. Howdy folks, Brian here. So I have 2 little announcements, one pertaining to the channel, one pertaining to yours truly. The first is that we're changing things up behind the scenes due to scheduling issues. Life gets in the way, and life should always come first. To that end, we've recruited a new potential DM for our future D&D streams. Ripper and Dave will likely have more to say on that in the future, but for now, that's your sneak peek from your pal Brian. Speaking of me, I wanted to mention that I'm going to be dipping my toes into the world of streaming once more. If you'd like to ever catch me live, go ahead and follow me on Twitter, or follow me on Mixer. The link's going to be in the description below. I may end up doing my own live recordings of stories like these, so you might want to check that out if you're interested. I'm also planning on showing you some behind the scenes of what a voice actor goes through, talking about general voice actor stuff, and of course, playing some sweet-ass games. So if you're interested, I'll see you over there. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time, ladies and gentlemen. Until then, be good, be happy, and always stay safe out there.